Hi, good evening. It's Sandy Shallis, and I am in the car, and I'm actually going to shut it off. Tonight, I want to change it up a little bit. We have been talking about such heavy, serious things, and they're not going away. But I had my little meeting tonight with my local environmental group, and we were discussing some things in New York State that I think could be, I hope you can hear me. I don't even know if I made it loud. Somebody tell me if you can hear me, because if you can't, I have to start over. Can you hear me, Erin? Because if you can't, I need to start over. I don't know if I made this loud enough. I forgot all about it. I think I'm going to start over. Oh, you can hear me? Okay. I didn't know if I made it loud enough. All right. So anyway, I published this article on the group, and it's called, it's about the fact that in New York State, the New York State DEC, and I might have to go around a little bit with this, the New York State DEC did not give another pipeline the go-ahead, okay? And this one is the big Millennium Pipeline that's going to that absolutely horrible, that absolutely horrible CPV fracked gas plant in Minnesink, New York. And I thought I would talk to you about this tonight, that there are things that we can do in our communities, and things that we can do that can be transferred to other states to make a difference, okay? A real difference. Now, this ruling in New York was in the New York Department of Environmental Conservation had rejected a natural gas pipeline that consumer advocates say would have threatened upstate residents' health, water quality, and communities, citing climate change concerns. So right off the bat, New York State is actually taking a proactive stance. Their DEC is really a DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation organization that is really looking out for the residents. Really, they are. Because this 8-mile-long thing, lateral pipeline would move shale gas from the existing Millennium Pipeline to the 680 megawatt, MW, Valley Energy Center in Orange County, New York, the CPV fracked gas plant that everybody talked about, that horrible thing. It was bothering my eyes. Anyway, it's a terrible thing. It is a blessing, Cynthia. She's joined us. It's a blessing. So in its rejection, the DEC said that FERC, had failed to take into consideration the environmental and health impacts of the power plant that the pipeline would supply. So this is really good stuff. And I think New York can be a state that is really going to be able to be a benchmark state for other states. And I think other states are going to be able to learn from New York. All right? They said that the Court of Appeals from the District of Columbia Circuit last month has given additional ammunition to opponents of pipelines. The court ruled in August that federal regulators should have considered the impacts of climate change. I like that. When considering whether to approve the Southeast Market Pipelines project last year. Now, as you've been with me for how long, you know that I worked against the Northern Access Pipeline up here in Western New York, and we won against that. National Fuel Gas is not going to be able to put that pipeline in because of maybe it was 5,700 letters that were written to the New York State DEC. I mean, they really took into consideration everything that people did, okay, in this fight. It was an amazing effort. And now the gas is not going to be able to go to that CPV frack gas plant until FERC gets their shit together, basically. New York State, we have really, really put the line. We've drawn the line in the sand in New York State. And according to the New York State DEC citing, that ruling when it called FERC's review of the Valley Lateral inadequate and efficient. Totally deficient. The letter from the DEC to project backers cited a lack of complete environmental review, which means that FERC has to go back to the drawing board. Totally. And sorry about all this light, but I'm in the car. I didn't want to go home and do this. I was excited. And the Sierra Club issued a statement hailing New York's denial. Also, they say that the water quality impacts of this pipeline should not be considered in isolation. The conservation group said, because both the pipeline and the power plant are just components of a project. Their environmental impacts should be taken into consideration together. So that, my friends, is awesome, all right? The next thing I want to talk about has to do with the things we are discussing in our group. And I am in a little county, sorry, and but we have a wonderful environmental group, absolutely wonderful. I did do a interview with Fred Sinclair, who is the head of this group, CCAC. You can see it on YouTube, and he's awesome. But I thought we'd go through this earthworks and discuss this water dangers. Why New York needs to change how it manages oil and gas waste. And like I said, these are the kinds of things that other states can take into consideration in their fights. And I'm going to go through the list quickly. I don't want to keep you guys on all night, but I'm happy about all this stuff. You know, I mean, that there's some proactive things going on in the midst of some really horrible events in our country. And we can talk about that in closing. So, New York has taken the fracked waste from Pennsylvania. And we are patently against that in our landfills. There's 5 landfills in New York State that were equipped to take this fracked gas. Fracked waste. And there were other things that were going on too. And so this is what Earthworks has talked about. New York is a growing volume faces a growing volume of oil and gas waste from both conventional operations in New York and unconventional shale operations in Pennsylvania. Despite being toxic and potentially hazardous and radioactive waste from oil and gas operations, such as, now listen, this is really important, drill cuttings, fracturing fluids, muds, and used fracturing sand. They often end up in the landfills in our state for disposal. And once there, contaminants may leak into the soil and eventually groundwater supplies. So we're working on changing this. I think it's just like wonderfully awesome. Okay, so the first thing, so they say New York's Department of Environmental Conservation, the DEC, doesn't have any specific, I'm sorry, I'm so uncomfortable, but specific public data on the oil and gas waste stream. So it is really impossible to know how much is being produced in the state or where it ends up. And I'll tell you what, some of it ends up on the roads. And I don't know if this is happening anymore. So we're going to go through these things. We, according to data from Pennsylvania, though, between 2010 and mid-2015, nearly 600,000 tons of solid waste and over 23,000 barrels of liquid waste from that state were accepted to New York landfills. Why? Why do we need this? Now, I asked tonight in our meeting, where's the money going? Who's making the money off this? And the consensus was it was the private waste company. And how can that be? How can that be allowed to happen? So we are working on fighting this, our little team with other people. So in early 2016, the DEC proposed revisions to its regulations on solid waste in landfills, which is really cool. It provides opportunity to change some aspects of how oil and gas waste is managed. Every state needs to be reviewing all these things. You know, we might be against pipelines, and we are. We don't want any more pipelines. We want to live with what we have. We want to fix what we have, but we really need to be understanding in every state of what our state is doing with this stuff, especially the states that are fracking. Colorado, Oklahoma, I can't tell you all that. Lisa Thomas has come in and she asked a question, would you be willing to teach the Appalachian people how to fight and keep those pipelines out of the Appalachian and Blue Ridge? Lisa, that is lovely. But I am actually not the person that could teach that. But there are a lot of people, and there are activists that do travel, and we'll just have to look for that person. We will, okay? So they said it's necessary to dispose this stuff properly, and because current regulations date back to the 70s and the 90s. These regulations, they don't address current realities of a growing volume of waste, new production practices, and potential impacts on water, soil, land, and wildlife, and health. And Mindy says, privatized waste management skims on solutions. Yeah, we might touch a little bit about that. So I'm going to read. Number 1, prohibit disposal of oil, gas waste in landfills. DEC has never taken the important step of determining whether landfill disposal is an appropriate management approach for oil and gas wastes. The overall category of drilling and production waste in reality represents a chemically complex mixture of fluid and solid organics like salts and minerals and metals and now this word is radionucleotides. I got it. Scientist or not, I finally got a word. Yet the DEC continues to categorize oil and gas wastes simply as general solid waste, effectively sanctioning the disposal in landfills of substances with unknown environmental unknown. What do we know? What's going to happen, right? The next thing is prohibit publicly owned treatment works from accepting the leachate from landfills that dispose of oil and gas waste. I think that's a really important one. We just have to say no. Who needs the money? I don't. And I would rather live where I live and pay more state taxes or pay more taxes to live in a clean place where I know that we're not taking that fracked stuff. And my heart feels for Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is so, they've gotten sold out, and they're selling all their fracked waste, their fracked gas to us in New York. And one thing they're not going to be able to do is they're not going to be able to send it through the Northern Access Pipeline to go overseas. They're not gonna mess around with us here in New York. I'm telling you, we are tough activists. So that was a good one. You know, that there was an analysis of leachate from West Virginia landfills that accept oil and gas and waste indicates that it contains contaminants like chloride, arsenic, and barium, as well as radium-226 and 228. These are not good things, obviously. They are not. Next, we're going to go to prohibit application of oil and gas waste on roads. Well, when I first moved here to this county, I did not know that they were using Pennsylvania fracked waste on the roads in the winter. How short-sighted and ignorant is that? They think they're going to save a buck. That's what it's all about. They think they're going to save a buck. So the DEC currently allows that use of production brine from low-volume conventional oil and gas production wells and gas storage facilities as a road de-icing and dust suppressant agent. I don't want it. Would you? Nuh-uh. So we're against this. This brine from gas storage facilities, it contains similar components and contaminants. So chemical testing of liquid waste before it's applied to the roads is minimal. We're also working on that kind of thing. We're working on this regulation in New York State. We have been working on changing those to not allow it in at all. And it was allowed in, or it was discussed that, everything would be checked. All of these vehicles and transportation modes would be checked for radiation. Sounds good on its face, right? It's not. We don't want it at all. We don't even want to check for radiation because we do not want it coming in the state. No. We don't want it coming in the state. So Cynthia says Tennessee does that too. Yuck. So that has to stop. The runoff, what do we know what's in there? The runoff in that is disgusting. Ugh. So we got to close a loophole in our state, it might be in a lot of other states, I don't know, that exempts oil and gas waste from ever being classified as hazardous. Is that insanity? Nearly 30 years ago, the U.S. EPA exempted oil and gas exploration and production wastes from the U.S. Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, the RCRA. EPA has clearly stated that were it not for the exemption, much oil and gas waste would meet the definition of hazardous waste because it contains those substances such as benzene, arsenic, and lead. Scientific research increasingly shows that all of this, I'm going to say it, all of this shit, it's terrible. It's terrible. We also need to reclassify and regulate drill cuttings, technologically enhanced radioactive material, and make them technological advanced radioactive material. Many tons of waste are brought to the surface during the process of drilling underground to create an oil or gas well. The DEC's assertion that drill cuttings are just rock and soil relies on a single, unreliable study from 2010. Come on, we got to get on the ball. Like I said, New York is on the ball, but we got to get on the ball even more. I guess in closing from this, the DEC specifically excludes cuttings from ever being defined as processed and concentrated, so state laws on the disposal of radioactive waste can never apply. What kind of shit is that? The EPA defines drill cuttings as TENORM, TENORM, but allows states to choose whether to apply the TENORM classification in oil and gas wastes. DEC's failure to adopt the EPA's position means that potentially radioactive and toxic waste can continue to be disposed of at landfills. So basically, tonight, we've been talking about fracked waste. What's being done with it? The things that New York State has done, which actually are really good. Our New York State DEC is going up against FERC. We are going up against FERC, and we're telling them, do your job, do the environmental impact studies, no more rubber stamping, none, no more rubber stamping. It is a bunch of crap, and this has got to stop, Trump administration or not. These people are in FERC for a reason, and they cannot slop through anymore. We're done. And all of us activists that are out there, we're done. We are going to hold FERC accountable in every state decision. Activists in every state are going to hold them accountable. I know you all can do it. I know you all can do it. You know, guys, I do talk a lot about abrupt climate change. And you know that I am a proponent of the fact that we have problems on the planet. And I have said that Mother Earth is getting ready to kick us off. I don't know when, but I tell you what, when I get involved in the activism things, and I say, we have every single day for the next how many years to try to make things right. And we have people on our page like James McGee of IOE Enterprises, who is putting solar on people's homes. And his thing is, he says it is up to us and not the government. And his little company, you can invest $1. You know, anything you invest with his company, you as a shareholder, whatever you want to call it, get to make the decision on who gets the treatment, the solar. Okay? He'd like to move into New York, and he was talking about using our house. I'm not 100% sure, because I think there's a lot of people that are in worse shape than we are. You know, I know my husband's not going to be working, and things are going to be tight, but we're going to have to learn to live like that. You know, we learn to live like that. But we'll see, James. You know, I don't know if James is listening, but the activism goes on. It never stops. It cannot stop, because as long as we are breathing, no matter what we're breathing, as long as we are breathing, we're going to fight those things that are wrong. We are going to fight against those pipelines. We are going to fight against fossil fuel industry, and we are going to demand renewables, and we are going to demand what we want to go on. And again, I don't know how long we have. We've done a lot of damage. The Arctic ice is melting. You see what's happened with Harvey. I don't have to go over it too much. We know that the jet stream had Harvey sitting over Texas in a chemical, everything is chemical factories, oil factories. Exxon is there, you know. Some people say that they were thinking that Harvey was a manufactured type of hurricane by the government and HARP, and they believe in some of those things. And, you know, I am not that person. I am a scientific method person. I worked in research for 20 years. I worked with researchers. I need proof. I believe in the scientific method. I believe in climate change. I believe in man-made global warming. And so I really can't, I personally can't get into some of those things, but I don't put anybody down, or I will never judge you on what you think and feel. But what I will do is educate you through science and bring on people that are scientists and that can tell you about what cloud seeding really was, like Dr. Guy McPherson did in the interview I did with him. So Cynthia says, is it Michigan has free solar if you qualify? Well, we know that qualifying is probably pretty tough, but I don't know. Got to look at your state. And Trucito, Umbra, hi. You say I will, but only because we have fascists in power who hate science. That's right. Absolutely fight against these people. They're climate deniers. And as I said in my streams before, they're murderers. They are murderers. Cynthia, thank you for sharing. I know that you have a cold and you got to go to bed. Thank you for being here with us, Cynthia. And I actually thank everybody. So we're going to look at New York as a state that actually is a state that has done things. And while there are still fights going on, believe me, there are fights going on in our little local area. Our local landowners went to court, and actually these little courts sided with FERC. But in the city of Buffalo for that pipeline, I don't think it's been settled. I don't think it's been settled yet, even though National Fuel Gas can't build the pipeline because of the DEC. They're still trying through eminent domain to take these people's property and use it as they would like. So, be that as it may, the fights continue. And I also want to shout out to, I don't know if he's on, Desmond Berry and Kevin for the excellent work they did on the Line 5 Enbridge day on Saturday. And, working very hard so that Enbridge will close down Line 5, that very, very old pipeline that is not needed anymore. No, it was built in the 50s. And Kevin and Desmond did a fabulous job, and Desmond and Kevin's on our team, and I'm hoping that when Kevin does go to the UK, we are going to get some fantastic education on the activists in the UK against fracking there, because it is a huge problem, and there's a lot of activists. And you can use a resource called Drill and Drop that I use. We use on the page sometimes, and we publish their articles. So Drill and Drop is actually pretty good if you want to get some information. But we are really hoping that Kevin's going to give us some kick-ass stuff from the UK. It's not just the United States, guys. It's just not. And people are against this stuff all over the world. People are reaching out. They want simpler lifestyles. They want to be able to just choose the choice that's not going to rip up the environment. So that being said, thank you for coming. Thanks for listening. We will be coming back with more good stuff to teach you. And I just kind of wanted to stay a little bit away tonight from the gloom and doom, which, it's part of reality, and we all know. And we know that Irma is going to Florida, and I'll come back and talk about that more, because we all have a lot of people in Florida that we love. And Mindy has come on. Thanks. She says, thanks, Danny. Mindy, I love you. Mindy and I will have a surprise coming up pretty soon. But anyway, Mindy does our graphic arts. She's the person responsible for the absolutely magnificent graphic arts. And if I ever get it together to get the t-shirts made, and so you could order the t-shirts, I'll try, I'm just trying to get the whole Wi-Fi computer thing fixed so I can do interviews. So everybody, good night. I'm going to get going home. And I love you. Peace. And thank you. Good night, guys.